Aura History Untold is a newcomer to the Civ-like 4X genre, but isn't it really missing an X? Watch on and find out.
My name is Thoraxe, and this is Strategy for Busy People. If you've got a few minutes, I'll tell you what to play.
Civilization builders fall squarely into Strategy for Busy People territory, and this week we're looking at Aura, A History Untold by Oxide Games. I've got about 12 hours in it. The 4X turn-based strategy genre is getting quite crowded these days. You might have seen my review of Humankind previously. Old World is also on my list. There are probably some others that I've either played or tried that didn't even make the cut. So what exactly does Aura have to offer that its peers don't? Well, it really depends on what you're looking for. Aura starts out much like most of these types of games. You pick a ruler that provides some bonuses and has some negative qualities, and you have absolutely no idea what any of these stats mean because you have never played the game before. I went with the Japanese because they seemed kind of warlike, and I figured, oh, this is a 4X game. I will definitely have to exterminate someone at some point. And look at this, a war of annihilation. That sounds right up my alley. Oops. But we'll get to that. You make some choices about the default map and the number of opponents you'll have, and off you go to forge a new civilization starting from nothing other than an initial settlement and a scout. There is a tutorial that guides you through things, and it gives you a lot of information to start, but then slowly peters off as you end up having to mostly lather, rinse, and repeat your actions. In many ways, this game has a lot of parallels with Humankind, but then also some parallels with Civilization and other games. You can build as many cities as you want, pretty much anywhere that you want, so that's kind of Civ-like. Cities are initially placed into regions, and as they grow, they can expand to take over more regions. Regions have a specific number of zones into which improvements can be built and deposited, and regions have base production stats that they provide to their owning city. If a region is too close to a neighboring civilization, it may take more than one expansion point to claim it. City improvements take turns to produce based on the production level of the city, and cities can also produce units based on the various technologies that you have researched. So far, this seems all mostly straightforward, except that regions are neither hexes nor squares in this game, but are rather organic and interesting shapes. The terrain itself looks wonderful, and the procedural generation is pretty good. But in spite of the wonderful looks, the graphical performance of this game is downright atrocious. It's been a while since I had a game that I couldn't play at 4K resolution with a 3080 GTX on reasonable graphics settings, but Aura needed to be turned down to a 2K base resolution with graphics quality turned down from that just to maintain a passable frame rate. And it would still suffer from horrible frame drops when zooming in or out. Oxide still has some serious work to do there, but I digress. City management has some interesting and unique qualities to it. Your city has several stats like happiness, health, prosperity, and so forth. You also have these slots where you can install amenities that provide bonuses over a period of turns, but those amenities are consumable resources that you need to produce in your production facilities. Keeping your city's meters maxed out ensures various benefits in areas like taxes, research, production, and so forth. And that brings us to another key difference in this game: supply chain management. Unlike a lot of other games of this type, supply chains get pretty deep pretty quickly. Certain buildings produce things that go into your resource inventory, and then those things might get used by other buildings to produce other things. As an example, once you develop the technology to produce candles, you can make candles in various production facilities like workshops and apothecaries. To make candles faster, you need to supply those production facilities with things like tallow. However, tallow needs to be harvested from various resource nodes on the map, like a pig resource or a particular type of sea resource. If your city has a region with pigs in a particular zone, you can build a farm there to harvest the pigs and specify that you want tallow and not food as the output. But why would you want candles? Well, candles can be burned as an amenity in a city slot to add some bonuses. See what I did there? Burn candles? Ugh, why does nobody like my jokes? Anyway, candles can also be installed in the dwelling building type to provide city-level benefits too. And just about every building has some kind of slot for some kind of thing to go into. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm talking about how you can slot in tools at the workshop to make ropes, which can also be used next to the workshop slot. Okay, if your mind was in the gutter, I don't think I'm helping with the hard tools and rope and slots. But anyway, back to the game. Remember how I mentioned an oops regarding annihilation? So, now that you've got your production ironed out, you can just spam a bajillion units and then destroy your enemies and hear the lamentation of their women, right? Well, not so fast. Unlike other 4X games, the advancement of military units and military technologies in this game is pretty slow. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but let's focus on some specifics for the moment. So, while you can build a lot of cities, building settlers and then sending them out takes quite a bit of time. And, at least in the mode I was playing, the map is not exactly huge, so you start running out of space to build your cities early on. You also don't develop forms of government that allow for more than 3 cities until later, so let's just stick with 3 cities for now. You build some units, which takes a reasonable amount of time, but then they go into your reserves and don't automatically get dumped on the map. In order to deploy a unit, you have to muster it. On the pro side, the muster process allows you to build units in a completely different area than you want to deploy them. On the con side, you can't muster units directly into a city that's being contested, and the mustering process takes more than one turn. Additionally, the combat system has a concept of formations that allows you to combine different units into a single formation. You gain additional formation types as your research into military tech progresses, and each formation has specific unit types that go in specific places. Ultimately, the formations provide various buffs to the unit stats during combat. Now that you've your units into a formation, you can finally go to war, as long as you have a casus belli, or a reason for war. With Tokugawa as the leader, you pretty much can go to war to annihilate anyone you encounter. With the smaller map I was playing on, people kept getting in the way, so I could go for a war of expansion to attempt to claim one of the enemy cities, and the annihilation war benefit turned out to not be worth much. But even though you specifically have to target a city with your expansion war, it seemed like you could siege any of the cities of that player. Going to war has a prestige cost associated with it, and that brings us finally to the most important aspect of the game, which is prestige. What were you expecting? You see, the game is divided into eras, kind of like humankind. When enough nations advance their technological level to the next era, a culling event occurs, and the bottom civilizations are literally just removed from the map. Poof. So ultimately, the game is all about having the top prestige number at the very end, but making sure you're at least not in the bottom tier come era change. Remember, kids, S tier good, F tier bad.
Before I give my final verdict, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Agree with me, disagree with me, or want to see other content? Let me know in the comments below. Want to try this game yourself? Check out my humble affiliate link below. And if you want to support me in making more of these videos, become a patron on Patreon. Your support really makes a difference. The final verdict.
This game has a ton of bells and whistles and is definitely distinct from other games in the genre. One might call this a 3.5x or even a 3x game because of how de-emphasized combat is in the grand scheme of importance, but it doesn't mean you can't play a combat-heavy campaign. Overall, the mechanics are solid, and there are a lot of intertwining systems. I didn't even really talk about religion, government, etc. On my trademarked 3-point score scale of avoid, meh, And I forgot to eat. I produced plenty of crops, fished many fishes, and showered my cities with feasts and metal pots. But after 12 hours, I decided that it was time to make my own meals, in spite of how much fun I was having. This is a solid 4X title that is worth a play, and maybe I'll go back to it later now that I know that Tokugawa isn't all that he's cracked up to be, in spite of his penchant for annihilation.